Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order this commission meeting for Lynn Haven. Today, before we begin the invocation, I just wanted to make one comment. I looked up and saw the entire back row is the Lynn Haven Fire Department. And it's been a very tough month for that department, and I want you to know how honored I am to be the mayor of a city with a whole row of heroes sitting in the room with me. Thank you for all that you did, all your bravery, all the sacrifice that you did in the recent events. We're all very proud of you. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Commissioner Barnes to please lead us in an invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with bowed heads and humble hearts. Lord, we thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. And Father, you know how tough it's been for our city this past week with the fires that have taken place. We just pray and ask that you would be with these families, that you would just protect them and just love them, God. And Lord, we just love you for all the good things that you've done for us. We pray for our troops who are overseas, who are protecting us. We pray for the business that we're about to conduct here for this city, that it be done in accordance to your will. For these and other blessings we ask in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to begin the public hearing. At the time is 6:01. This public hearing is to discuss the Marina Island LLC development agreement. If you'll notice on the agenda, it says no action taken until item 12. This is the first public hearing on the development agreement, and therefore I need a motion to remove the actionable item from tonight's agenda, because we'll have to have another reading of this and another discussion before we can move forward. So if I could have a motion to remove item 12 from tonight's agenda, please.
So move.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Thank you. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so we have removed item number 12 from tonight's agenda, and at this time we'll commence with the public hearing. Do we have anyone from Marina Island LLC who would like to make a statement or have any comments this evening? It appears we do not. Do we have anyone from city staff or the city manager who has any comments or discussion you'd like to bring forward on this public hearing?
I'd just like to encourage the commission to really look at this agreement, especially before next reading. There are several things in there that still may be controversial. I'd really like more feedback if I could get it, and to make sure that this is the best deal for the city.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I would also, I'm sure I don't need to do this, but I'd like to encourage each member of the commission to try and schedule a time to meet with Mr. White and go over your concerns and talk with him about the development agreement over the course of the next couple of weeks before we move back to an actionable item. At this time, is there anyone from the public who has an item about the development agreement or some questions that you would like to put forward to the commission, or maybe some concerns that you would like the commission to be thinking about as we're looking at this for the next 2 weeks? Mr. Walker?
Good evening, Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Dealing with this subject on page 4.
If you could speak directly into the microphone so that everyone can hear. Thank you.
Following that. Thank you. I'm sorry. On page 4, if you take a look down the bottom, subparagraph 3, subparagraph 1, developer is the owner of the fee simple title to the property. Is that correct, or is that a free title, the word title?
This is just a public hearing, so it's just a time for you to make comments, and we'll take down the questions, but I wouldn't expect an answer from the commission tonight. Thank you.
That was one of my comments. The word looked free, and I think it should be free.
No, it is fee simple.
It is free simple?
Continue.
Thank you. questions about the road. Will we have control of these roads from the start? In the agreement is the developer will make them. They are in Lynn Haven. Are we going to accept them right away, and do they have to come up to code? That's a question on that one. On page 8, again concerning roads, RROW, when and where will the total be transferred to the city? What my question here is, the RROW is the entrance to the fuel depot. I understand from a previous meeting that that is not going to be transferred to the city. There's a portion of it, C1, that is not going to be transferred. Mr. Bales mentioned the fact that that was going to be transferred. As I understand it, it will not be. My question is, will it be, or is it going to be that easement? Okay. The road coming out of there, are we incorporating in that road the major traffic study that was given to us by Marina, LLC? And will it incorporate the traffic study that was given to us with FSU's property? The traffic study for FSU that was given to us was 8,000 cars a day. I wonder if that's going to be incorporated. The roads again on page 8. Will the roads inside and outside be done by the city of Lynn Haven? Will they fall underneath the half-cent sales tax for the roads renovations and upkeep for the city of Lynn Haven? Page 10. Will the reuse water be supplied, will reuse water be supplied to the new development? Will the new CRA be verified for this area per 2017-2018 CRA, the draft plan and the budget, which was set for the new CRA, which was supposed to be an enlargement of the old CRA? My question.
Okay, Mr. Walker, at this time, you would be 40 seconds over time as far as the questions, and so what I would encourage you to do is to make a list of any further questions you have and have those ready for the final hearing, and possibly meet with city manager if you feel that there are questions that you want answered before then. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who has a comment or a question? Yes, Mrs. Walker, I'll get to you next.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. My first question is whether or not this development agreement contains wording for the property outside the gate.
Okay.
That's my second question is, at present, the development agreement includes a Marina Boulevard road from outside the gate to 390. The project engineer on the 390 development from 77 to Jinx Avenue has no knowledge of Marina Boulevard entering 390. All that he shows on his plans is a trail coming in there. My question is, does the Marina Island Boulevard have to be approved by anybody in the city or in the state in order to be functional and coming into 390? If in fact it doesn't become functional and is not allowed, where then does the traffic coming out of the Marina Island gate go to?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Tom Nolan, 1219 Alabama Avenue. When we were here the last time, when they pulled it off the agenda, you put a picture up there of exactly what they're going to do. Are we going to do that, or? that we
Right,
gotta read through?
right
or-
now, we're having a public hearing about the development agreement, if you have questions about that.
Well, that's what I was asking, what, you know,
Well, the development agreement has not been approved yet, and so there's really not a picture that would be an accurate picture at this time for us to put up until the development agreement, there's conceptual pictures of what has been discussed, but has not been approved.
and, okay. And,
The answer is there's no picture tonight.
okay, so I can go to the clerk and get the development agreed.
Yes, absolutely.
Nicola Page, whatever, that's fine.
And it is available online as well, if you'd rather have a hard copy. And one thing that I would like to suggest tonight to city manager is that we put a copy of the development, maybe 4 or 5 copies at the public library. That would make it very accessible for people to look at. I think that would be a good thing.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Sure. Anyone else have a question? Concern? Last call? Okay. It's at 6:10. This public hearing is closed. I would remind you that the next public hearing will be April the 10th at 4 p.m. on this item. And we've just asked the city manager to place copies of the development agreement at the library. And then as you're going through it, if you have questions, you can make an appointment and come to see staff, and they can answer questions. And once again, the picture would not be appropriate at this time because the development agreement has not been approved. That's why. Thank you so much. No other questions or concerns?
Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
At the next meeting, we're going to be voting on this, if I'm not correct, right? Most
That is correct.
So I would assume that it would be appropriate for concerns that we have with the commission to be brought up at this time.
Well, we did that first tonight,
Oh,
before I opened it to the public.
okay, well, I apologize.
But you can still bring up your concerns at this time if you like. You're
I
part of the
apologize.
public.
I guess I missed that, and I apologize. I've got a couple of concerns. I've met with the city manager about it. I've read through this document. Sent the city manager 2 pages of questions I had, and he addressed most of the questions. But the 2 biggest issues I've got with this, I think most people here know how I feel about CRAs. So I'm completely against allowing this development to have a CDD. I don't think Lynn Haven needs another taxing authority. It's an issue that will come back to bite this commission, I think, in the butt, because when they start complaining about what they're paying in property taxes, they're not going to go to the CDD. They're going to come to the city council and say, why are my property taxes what they are? When it's the CDD that's actually charging them taxes too, and that we will not have control of. It's my understanding that a CDD is appointed by the developer, not by the commission, so we will have no control about who gets on that board. So I can't support a CDD, and we'll say no to any development that's got a CDD in it. In addition to the problem I have got with CDD in that respect, the second regard I have with the CDD, and if I'm incorrect, then it can be explained to me, but if we allow a CDD to be formed, then the CDD, so y'all understand, a CDD is a private version of a CRA. If we allow a CDD to be formed, then they can bond out the work that they have to do for the infrastructure, so that they won't be paying for the infrastructure. They'll be bonding it out for the taxpayers to pay for the infrastructure of the development to be done. So in effect, they're getting the development, and the future property owners have to pay for the infrastructure. I've got an issue with that. Then the third issue I've got is they're asking for us to give them credit back for the infrastructure that they're paying for impact fees. When they're not going to be paying for it, they can bond it out and have the CDD pay for it in the future. So I've got a serious problem with the way this development is set up at the moment.
Okay.
And if it's not addressed, then my vote is going to be no to approve it in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you for that input.
Yes, ma'am.
And one question, when you were, and I share many of your views about CDD, but I also, when I met with city planner, Ms. Amanda Richard, to talk with her about CDD, I understand that the intent would not be to tax the residents, but it would be a commercial tax. It would be a business tax.
It would have to be a property tax.
But a commercial, not,
But it would still be property in the city of Lynn Haven that is being taxed and not being taxed by the city of Lynn Haven Authority.
and I'm not defending the CDD at all. I'm much in agreement with what you said. I was just pointing out that it's not necessarily a residential tax, that it's a commercial business tax in the CDD.
That's nowhere addressed in this development agreement.
Okay. Are there other comments from the commission?
I have a comment, if I may, and this has to do with the master plan. And am I understanding correctly that we are going to vote on the master plan at the next meeting as well, or just the agreement?
We're voting on the development agreement.
Okay, so we not have to worry about the master plan until next time, okay.
Well, no.
Mayor,
okay,
if I may just say,
correction.
the master plan is an exhibit to the development agreement.
Okay, then I definitely have an issue.
I mean, it's I think exhibit A in the agreement, if you
Okay.
see that.
I'd like to express my issue.
Okay,
The,
go ahead.
The first map that we got looked completely different than this, and I understand that they're upgrading and changing things around. The most concerning fact I have, on the latest map, under residential, that's now colored in yellow, and I apologize because I know you don't see this map, but it's colored in yellow. Now, in very microscopic 3.5 point type, underneath it says, mixed use, industrial, and low density residential designations. And that is now the color of what's outside the gate. So I just want to point that out because I've always been against anything going outside the gate, but I find the fine print that's just been added kind of a sneaky maneuver. That's really all I want to say tonight.
Well, I think I made myself very clear about outside the gate at the last meeting as well, Commissioner Tender, but I also wanted to point out again that this drawing is non-binding. It's an exhibit. It's
Okay.
not a binding part of the development agreement.
Okay.
It's an exhibit. Are there other questions?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I got a list actually, but I want to make sure we get clarity on that because if it's an exhibit and it's part of the development agreement, would it not be binding, Rob?
According to the attorney a moment ago, he said it was not.
Okay.
But are you
That not binding. I mean, I understand it's an exhibit, but exhibit is part of an agreement.
It's part of the agreement, but you can't contract zone. So there'll be no zoning changes based on this development agreement. It essentially just freezes the code that we have now. And if there were other codes that need to be changed, then that would still have to come through the normal code process.
Okay.
So it's a plan, and that's just part of the agreement as part of the plan of the development. It can change,
Okay.
but it is a plan. The fundamental reason for a development agreement is to kind of plan out these developments over time.
Right.
That's just part of it.
Okay. Well, I agree with Commissioner Tender and the mayor. I just think if we get an updated map, maybe we definitely should remove that language regardless if it's an exhibit or non-binding or binding. But anyway, I'll continue in my list. On page 10B, and I have talked with city manager and city attorney on these, but for the record, I'll just go through them. Page 10, H for marina. The language there says participate in dredging operations. And my concern is would we be bound to the operations of the dredging? So I just wanted to point that out because I don't think the city's I don't think the intent there is for the city to do the dredging. I know that we've done the permitting stuff in the past. We've done some deals in the past where we removed the dirt and stuff like that to save the developer some money. But I just want to pay attention to that language there on dredging operations. Also, impact fees. I'm having a hard time with all of the impact fees. I understand this is kind of a way around it by doing the credits back and forth, but I'll just go on to say that the impact fees, I'm not sure that, with the exception of stormwater, because of where they're situated on the bay there, that's kind of an easy one. But the other impact fees, I don't think we've ever done that for any of the other developers. So that's going to be something I'll have to work through to continue to work on. The amendment to number 4, page 11, a couple of things here. It's talking about the water and the wastewater collection. If I'm understanding this right, it looks like the city would pay for some of that. And I just don't think that the city should be paying for anything that goes on that property. That's just a blanket statement. I'm kind of, again, okay with waiving the impact fees, maybe, but the stormwater for sure. I just, again, don't think we've done this anywhere else. But in that same paragraph with the addendum, and no disrespect to the mayor, but at the very end it says that it may be approved and amended by the mayor after the agreement is final. And I just think any amendment to an approved agreement that the commission has agreed that it should come back to the full commission for final approval. Not to mention that this agreement, remember, is 30 years old. And this particular section is 20 years. So it's just, again, no disrespect, Mayor, but.
None taken.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, keep going here. No, I got the answer to that. It's okay. Couple more. We understand the assignment. That was something really that I worked on a lot with this and the windfall, and I appreciate the developer keeping the windfall in place. And I think I'm okay with this, but as page 14A, it says the entire agreement and the master development rights can be transferred basically upon written notice and consent from the city, but that parcels, and which is number B, parcels could be done without consent of the city. I would just like to shore those up so that if the entire development is transferred, the agreement is transferred, that even if they do a parcel, that maybe we could have written consent from the city on that. Community, again, couldn't agree more with the CDD. I had the exact same comments. I don't think that a CDD works out there. I could not support that. Let's see, last thing, community, let's see, page 16. Again, sorry, that's just page 16 goes into the CDD again. The only reason I could almost live with this language is it says that we won't deny them, and I'd have to ask Rob if this is a state statute, because CDD is tied to a state statute. We would allow them to apply for it. So if that language needs to be in here, that we would allow for them to apply for it, then that's fine. But as long as we have final approval on if it's going to be a CDD or not out there. So my suggestion almost would be that we remove the CDD altogether and make it a separate agreement at another time. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else on the board have comments or questions?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, please.
Basically, and a lot of this stuff has already been brought up, I am concerned about the impact fees. I think we really need to sit down and talk about the impact fees. Again, I don't have problems with the stormwater, but parks and law enforcement, fire, and these other things, in exchange for credits, I do have some issues with that. And the other thing would be the community development district. I'm not real keen on that as well. So I think we really need to discuss these two items very carefully before we approve them.
Okay, your last comment was about a CRA, is that what we were talking about?
CDD.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought you said CRA on the
No.
last comment, because you said community development. I'm sorry. Okay, anyone else?
I have one more question.
Okay, go
Mayor.
ahead, Commissioner Tender.
I'm back on this map.
Okay,
If I'm reading the map correctly, there will be at least 2 bridges built on the development. I just want to make sure that that will be at their expense and not at ours. And I guess my question is to the city attorney here. This map is part of the agreement, but you're saying that it's not. I'm a little confused, because this map is my largest concern, all that I see on here. And I just want to know, if we were to agree on the development agreement, are we also then automatically agreeing to everything on this map? And will the map be voted on separately?
The short answer is no, that you're not agreeing to everything on the map. You're not approval. All those have any changes in the property from current will have to come back to the commission for approval. And so this is just a plan.
Okay, it's just a plan.
It's just a plan. And so, no, it doesn't change anything.
Okay, thank you.
is that clarity or not clarity?
I'm going to assume that I don't have to worry about this until, I'm not sure
Well,
when. but-
and Mayor, can I make a comment?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to clarify as well for me as well, but if that partial, which, outside, they would have to come before the commission again to get it changed to mixed use. I mean, it doesn't matter what it's on a map. It's going to have to come before a commission and say, we want to change it from this use to that use.
Yes, there's a statutory process to make land use changes, and that has to be followed. You
Okay.
cannot change it by contract or agreement. It has to go through the statutory process, where we have 2 readings as an ordinance, and the changes are made and approved by the commission. Yes.
Wonderful.
Mayor,
So-
if I may?
Sure, go ahead.
That being said, Mr. Jackson, if we agree to this agreement and it shows that the land use is that, and then we do not approve it through the statutory requirements, does that open us up to litigation because we've agreed to it in the DA?
Certainly, any change that is, any application that's made for a land use change that is not approved or approved can be challenged by anybody with appropriate standing. And I suppose that a developer could come back and say, well, you approved this before in this map, but now you're saying no. But as long as there's a basis for not approving it, then you should withstand challenge. But certainly you could always be sued or challenged on any kind of decision that the commission makes.
May I ask one more question?
Yes, please.
The other question that I have is I noticed there's something else here. It's called Blue LLC property, and there are 3 sections within this map. Who is Blue LLC all of a sudden? That's the first I'm hearing of them.
Sure. If you recall, when we first started this process, Blue Water Development was the primary developer of this property. They owned prior to the fuel depot several parcels of land, some that was in the bayou, some that was outside the bayou. And they always intended to put that as part of the development agreement. When Marina Island has stepped in, they have partnered with Blue Water Development, and so those parcels that weren't necessarily part of the fuel depot parcel, but are separate parcels, are included into this development agreement as part of the overall development plan.
Okay.
And so they own those parcels as various different entities: Blue LLC 1, Blue LLC 2, Blue LLC 3, and all those parcels are described in the agreement, and that's what those are.
Okay. And then my last question, I promise. Arthur Drive, that's on this side of their property, am I correct? Where it says Arthur Drive? Or is that some road that they've created and they're calling that Arthur Drive?
No.
As well as the Arthur Drive that is off 14th Street?
No.
You know, when you go up 14th Street, dead ends, you turn right. You either have to turn right or left there. To the left, you're going to Sally Mae and Merrick. To the right, you're going to Natural Lighting. And do you see Arthur Drive there on the map? Where it's coming out on Maryland?
I see what is the question? Is it inside or outside the fuel depot?
I guess this property that belongs to Blue LLC, if I'm looking at this map correctly, that property is not even on I call it an island, but it's over here. They've bought that piece of deserted property right there on Arthur Drive. Is that correct?
But it is part of the island,
Yeah,
because here's the
Yeah,
canal.
there's.
Here's the existing canal. Down here's the existing canal. So all of that is technically part of the island.
Okay. So
Yeah, but that is the original road that's there.
So on this map, the parcels that are colored in white are not owned by the developer or the applicant, and so they're not part of the development agreement. So that would include the FSU property, the Merrick property, which is at the point, and then the parcels that Sally Mae own,
okay.
or the former Sally Mae. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commission? And were there any further comments or questions from the public? Okay, I'm going to declare this public hearing closed. And once again, to remind you that the second public hearing in which some action will be taken will be April the 10th at 4 p.m., encouraging you to check with the public library if you'd like to look at the development agreement in detail, and then also encouraging you, if you have questions that you don't understand, and the map exhibit will also be included, that you can make an appointment with the city planner, the city manager, or other staff members to have your questions answered. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to item number 4. This is a public hearing which will begin now, and I have to look at the time. It's 6:28 Central Time. And this will be an actionable item. It will be item 11 on tonight's agenda. And at this time, it's the Small Scale Future Land Use Map Amendment, SSA-18-4. From James Finch and Associates LLC, and I would ask Amanda Richard, who is our city planner, to bring her report. Thank you.
This is a small-scale future land use map amendment, SSA 1804. The applicant is James Finch and Associates. The address is 17th Street, across from Kane Griffin Park, parcel number 11591-000-000. The existing land use on the property is low-density residential. The requested land use is medium-density residential. There are no existing uses on the site. It's a vacant parcel currently. The size of the property is 5 acres. Adjacent land uses: to the north is recreation open space, that's Kane Griffin Park. To the south is low-density residential. To the east, low-density residential. But to the west is medium-density residential. So it is contiguous to the same land uses as being requested. This is a location map showing 17th Street, and the parcel is outlined in red. To the west here on Illinois Avenue is where the current medium-density residential is. This is the aerial shot. You can see it's just a heavily wooded, vacant parcel. This is the current land use map, and the parcel that we're talking about is to the east of the blue. All that blue that you can see there is currently medium-density residential. If the land use is changed, then Mr. Finch's parcel will also become medium-density residential, which will allow for single-family homes and also multifamily. He could have duplexes, he could have townhomes on there, up to 10 units per acre. Under low-density residential, it has to remain under 5 units per acre, and single-family homes detached only. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the commission regarding the land use change? Everybody's good? Are there questions or comments from the public regarding the land use change? Okay, then I will declare this public hearing closed, and the time is 6:31 Central Time. And then we will be taking action on that item, on item number 11 on tonight's agenda. Moving on to item number 5, which is the mayor's report. Began tonight with a proclamation for Arbor Day. Is there a representative here tonight to receive the proclamation for Arbor Day for Lynn Haven? Then I'll just read it. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, now therefore I, Margot D. Anderson, Mayor of the City of Lynn Haven, do hereby proclaim April 27th, 2018 as Arbor Day in the City of Lynn Haven, Florida. That should say March 27th. Somebody will have to change this proclamation. As Arbor Day in the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 27th day of March, 2018. For the mayor's report this evening, I have had a few conversations over the past couple of weeks with various members of staff asking questions about the development agreement and some of the other items on tonight's board. I've also corresponded with Doug Hadaway of the Restore Foundation. He is the representative for the 93-acre Lynn Haven Bayou and Preserve Park, which we received through a gifting from the Restore Foundation because of the oil spill. And I'll be walking that next week with him and looking at what's going to happen out there again. I also met with with Panhandle engineer Chris Forehand with questions about our Lynn Haven Splash Park, which is now underway over at Kensall. We're very excited about that. And met with many different residents on various issues regarding drainage, zoning, and a multitude of other questions. It's been a great 2 weeks. We won't be meeting again before Easter, and I would like to wish each of you a very happy Easter weekend as we approach a very sacred and holy time in our country. And I hope all of you enjoy that day with family and friends. Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mayor. Been working on Rails for Trails, obviously. We had a great workshop today. I really appreciate Mr. Forehand and Panhandle Engineering and giving us a great presentation, all the work they've done on that to continue to move that project forward. Also wanted to just recognize, I hope everyone saw in the paper, wanted to recognize our employees that work with the water system. Lynn Haven won best tasting water for the region, and now they'll start competing at the state. So wish them good luck at the state level for that. So great tasting water. And then lastly, I just, on a personal note, my wife and I celebrated 30 years anniversary yesterday. So thank you. Yep, a lot of fun.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Many more.
Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, just want to echo with the employees that work with the water system. Thank you so much for a job that's well done. I also want to bring this before the commission. I was thinking about this the last couple of weeks, is perhaps if we could create a drop-off point for prescription medications that people in our city are needing to get rid of, and we certainly do not want them to flush it down the toilet. So if we can task the city manager and his staff to come up with a plan, that will be most helpful and appreciative. The third item is I've received a lot of comments with regards to the renovations that have taken place over at Sheffield Park. That park, as promised, is coming together, and I hope you guys will really appreciate the after work. I know it looked like a bomb went off, but I think the city manager has held true to his word, and that park is looking good. And I also want to echo what the mayor just said about this weekend being Easter. I hope you have a great Easter, celebrate with your family, and that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Tender?
Sorry about that. I have just a few things. I hear from many residents during the day, and I would really like to recognize our sanitation department. I had a lady come in, and she said, I know I'm always here complaining, but I've got something good to say today. So I was all ears, pen in hand, ready to make sure I brought it to the commission. She said her freezer in her garage went out. She had a freezer full of nasty, stinking meat. She called the sanitation department, explained to them what she had. She said in less than 2 hours, there was a man there with the truck, and she hauled 2 wheelbarrows full of nasty food out, I guess, and he actually helped her get it out of the freezer and everything. She was just over the moon about that, so hats off to them for sure. That's just amazing customer service. And also, I had a lady come that happens to be on Florida Avenue near me, and she's been there, Brenda Turner. She's had her business there for 30 years. She's a hairdresser down there, and she's hoping that we will repave the alleyway behind those businesses. I moved in, it wasn't paved, so she was telling me something I wasn't aware of, and she said it was taken up when we did some piping work back there, I guess, and she's begging that it be replaced, because when we close off Florida Avenue for the events that we enjoy so much, her sweet little customers have to go down that alleyway, and they're all complaining about it. So I know she would appreciate it if we could do something about that. And I talked to the gentleman, and I think the city manager has also spoke with him about dredging a little bit of that bayou down by Bailey Bridge. He read an article, I guess, in the News Herald saying that they dredged somewhere else and hauled the dirt off, and he is asking for the same. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Tender. Commissioner Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got a couple of things. I've also been out to Kensaw Park to see the splash pad breaking ground, and I'm glad to see that moving forward. I'm sure that once it gets completed, the citizens and the children of Lynn Haven are going to be extremely happy. I want to thank Michael, our City Manager Michael White, for meeting with me the last couple of times, in the last week and a half ago or so over the Marina Island and the employee manual that we're working on. He's been helpful answering a lot of the questions that I've had about it. And of course, y'all heard a couple of the big questions I've got about the Marina Island earlier. I also want to thank Michael and the city engineer, Chris Forehand. The ditch next to Publix that I've been concerned about with children walking around through the parking lots, safety issue that has been brought to my attention several weeks ago. And we were concerned about the cost. You know, it came back that we were looking at $12,000 for engineering, and it didn't seem like it was something that was going to be feasible. Well, the city managers found a way to do it and do it without costing the city near what just the engineering was going to be done. So I want to thank him for that, and I'm glad to see that moving forward. And I know the people who live in the Bel Air subdivision are going to be very happy that they'll be able to get into the public shopping center without having to walk through the parking lot. The last thing I've got, Mayor, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to bring up at this time or if I should ask for it to be added to the agenda, but Commissioner Shad, who I replaced a year ago, has been on the commission for 20 years, was instrumental in starting and making sure that the concerts in the parks went through, and he raised money and did everything for that. And in honor of that, in honor of his service to the city, I would either like to make a motion that we name the amphitheater after him, or if that's not appropriate, that I make a motion that we add it to the agenda so that we can name it after him.
I think it's a delightful idea, and I would entertain your motion and ask if the commission anyone would like to second that or discuss it.
Second.
So there has been a second. Is there any discussion from the commission or any comments? There's been a motion and a second. It's not on the agenda, that we would name the new stage in the park after Commissioner Roger Shad for his work with the concerts in the park and his service to the city. Is there any objection or any comments, any discussion? I can't imagine there would be any, but there appears to be none. So with that, Mr. White, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. And Commissioner Russell, I think that was an excellent suggestion.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Commission.
Okay, that's the end of that report. Item number 7 is the city manager's report. Mr. White?
Thank you, Mayor. We actually have 2 awards tonight that we want to recognize: an employee of the city and also a supervisor of the city. So with this, this employee tonight is David Carnley. He's been employed with the city since 2014 and is equipment operator in the sanitation division, the one you just bragged on, Ms. Tender. And his duties includes all types of operation, running equipment in that department. He's also served as sanitation supervisor on numerous occasions with great success. He makes great decisions, maintains the respect from his coworkers. He's very versatile and dedicated employee with a positive attitude. Every time I see David, he's always smiling and sticks his hand out. So with that, I'd like to ask David to come up and receive this token of our appreciation.
You have one more?
Yes, ma'am. As you know, we try to do an employee each month. However, the supervisor one is one that we typically do every quarter. It just so happened we had a lot of kudos from the diocese here this morning, this afternoon, as it relates to our fire department. So I'd like to ask our Chief Delonge and Assistant Chief Hernandez to come up. fellas.
Thank you.
Continue. I just have a couple more things. As the mayor said, we've been working hard on Bayou Park Reserve. I've been working a lot with Mr. Hadaway on that, trying to get that project within budget. The other thing from the Public Utilities Department, the water quality. To kind of put that in perspective, the city of Lynn Haven's water quality was chosen first from Pensacola all the way to Tallahassee in this District 12. So that's on odor, taste, quality, the peers looking at it. So now we're going to be one of 16 in the state going for the state award. So we'll be going up against districts in Miami, districts in Orlando, Tampa. So it's a great honor, and hats off to our utilities department. Thanks, Greg, for a great job. And lastly, April 6th, what y'all just voted on, renaming the amphitheater. We are opening the park. We have started advertising for the concert, which we are having Shenandoah and also Margot Anderson and Encore opening for them. So actually, everyone will get two concerts in one, so which would be great. And just kind of give you an idea, we started advertising yesterday, and we've already got over 25,000 impressions off Facebook alone. Earlier in the meeting, one of the earlier meetings, I got a call from the lead singer of Shenandoah, and he was telling me he was speaking with one of his buddies in Enterprise, Alabama. So he said that they're going to be bringing down 9 or 10. The word's already reached Enterprise that we're going to have the groups here. So please bear with us. There's going to be several roads shut down. Also, for the event, to try to get people over here safely, the city will be running buses from Kensaw Park. So there'll be plenty of parking at Kensaw, and we'll run you over here. Shuttles will be going all night. That's free. We also have a lot of food that we'll be having here to purchase, T-shirts. It's just going to be a great, fun night for everybody to enjoy.
Thank you. I know everybody in Lynn Haven's looking forward to the opening of the park, and it's going to be a great evening. Item number 8 is the city attorney's report.
No report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. This brings us to item number 9, which is public commentary. If there's anyone here who would like to speak on any issue or bring any concern before the commission, this will be your opportunity. Yes, sir.
My name is Brad Yunt, 210 Lakeview Terrace, and I've complained in the past about stormwater runoff, and I'd like to say that I met with a builder last week, and he said that he had to submit a plan for managing stormwater runoff in our subdivision, and I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Leon Miller, 1508 Mississippi Avenue. I understand that the room is going. Are we going to have a flash park too at King Griffin Park?
If I remain mayor long enough, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
And I don't mean that to be funny. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because that's a growing area in that area, and they pretty close to 300 or 400 kids in that area.
Yes, sir.
And it's going to be difficult for some of them to cross 77 or get out to the park on 390. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think we're going to find out very quickly that the splash park is going to be one of the most used areas in the city, so hopefully we'll be able to do several of them. Nobody faint. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hard to follow Mr. Miller here, Mr. Miller, but I'll give it a shot. There was a lot of discussion about the developer's map and whether it would be approved and whether it would be legal. I've said this before, I'm a contracts guy. If all the judge sees is something that's in writing, if it's not in writing, it ain't so. So why don't we get a corrected map before you vote on it?
Was that your question?
That is my question.
Okay, duly noted. Again, it's an exhibit. It's not a finalized map. The developer has presented a plan. It's not something we're voting on tonight. We had a public hearing. The map is available for your perusal at the public library this week, and you're certainly invited to the next public hearing.
Understand, I can still see where down the road somebody would try to put a wedge in it.
Appreciate your comments, sir. Anyone else? Okay, that would conclude our public hearing and public commentary, item number 9. Moving on to the consent agenda. Today, there's only one item on the consent agenda. That will be the minutes from the meeting of March 13th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion from the from the board? Any objection or comments from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender, Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, so the consent agenda stands approved. Moving on to old business, item number 11 is the final reading of ordinance number 1053, requesting a small-scale future land use map amendment, SSA-18-4, from James Finch and Associates, LLC. Mr. White, could you please read ordinance 1053?
Ordinance number 1053, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from low-density residential to medium-density residential for an approximately 5 acres of property located at 17th Street, parcel 11591-000-000 in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval from the board?
Move approval.
Just one.
Second.
It's a good project.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board?
Splash pad on the project would be great. Sorry.
I like that. Is there any discussion or questions from the public? There appears to be none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, so the motion stands approved. Item number 12 was deleted earlier in the meeting. Item number 13 is approval of the State Revolving Funds SRF Wastewater Improvements Contract, task orders, and unit prices. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second from the commission. Is there any further discussion or questions from the board? There appear to be none. Are there any comments or questions from the public? I hear none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Item number 14, approval of the State Revolving Funds SRF Water Improvements Contract. This is Water Improvements Contract, task orders, and unit prices. Is a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions from the board? There appear to be none. Any questions or comments from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, so it stands approved. And item number 15 is adjournment. I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight and invite you to the next commission meeting, and certainly have a happy Easter. Thank you so much. Meeting's adjourned. Oh, nice. Very nice. Oh, how are you?